first contact with Joshua put.
Welcome to First Contact Radio. Welcome to First Contact Radio. Talk about all these things we're talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
It's time to demand the truth.
All right, everything is energy. That's what I said. That's what I say a lot, and that's what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on in the show. However, let's start things off with the big story of the day, and that is the debate. The debate just ended about 30 minutes ago, maybe a little bit less. Very, very entertaining, somewhat boring, but was exactly as would be expected from Biden. There were times when he seemed to be fumbling through, and then there were times where he seemed to be clear. President Trump didn't interrupt like he did last time. He allowed Joe to have his answers. And the moderator seemed to be pretty fair. There were some questions that were asked that were tough questions. It was surprising to hear that she asked Joe Biden a question about the emails and the latest information that's come out. So all in all, she seemed to be fair. You know, there was a few interruptions here or there of Trump, a few interruptions of Biden. But overall, I think that anybody watching this debate should have a good idea of who's who. If at this point in time you don't know who you're voting for, then you probably really, need to spend a little bit more time then. And I don't understand why you wouldn't. I mean, we've seen what President Trump has done and can do. We've been watching him do this for the last, 4 years nearly. And we see what Joe Biden has done. And now we're seeing all the information coming out about the history of Joe Biden. And that's the big problem. So let's get into this. More information is coming to light about the dealings that Joe Biden has done in the past. You see, he's been in politics for 47 years, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal that other politicians like Schumer and Pelosi and Feinstein have also been in politics for equally as long or nearly as long. And when these politicians get in and they enact policies, these policies last a long time. And then we have the same politicians like Joe Biden telling us that things need to be fixed, yet he was the one who was in office when the problems were made. And now he's going to tell us he's going to fix a problem that he helped to create. And he had an opportunity for 8 years when he was vice president to do something about fixing these problems. It would seem that if their administration had been so successful, he shouldn't have those problems to be fixing this go round because they should have already been fixed. Nonetheless, they aren't, and there's a lot of dirt starting to come out on Joe. Not starting, but coming out more and more. And as it does, Joe is going to have to decide how he's going to respond. His team's going to have to decide. They may already have known. Case in point, the website address, ClintonHarris2020.com, that was registered just a few days as we looked at yesterday after the Biden-Harris ticket was decided. So there is something of a lack of confidence, maybe a knowledge of what's going on. Is Joe going to be able to weather the storm of all of this? It's going to be hard to say because a lot more information came out. Let me show you some of the latest in case you haven't seen this. Here is a site called Balding's World, Global Finance and Economics, report on Biden activities with China. A number of months ago, I was approached by an individual I had known for the better half of a decade. I had known this individual professionally and enjoyed the company and deep insight between our overlapping professional interests. Consequently, I would not infrequently seek out their professional opinion. They had written a research report for a client worried that the political risks that involved background on Biden's in China. This individual believed that the information that had been discovered and with the approval of the client needed to make its way to the public domain. They asked my help in putting the research report into the hands of press, asking them just to use the information for their own professional purposes, leaving the report anonymous. Knowing the individual and the quality of the work they do, I agreed. After reviewing in detail the report that was produced, there are a couple of key points about the report. First, it is almost exclusively taken from public sources and documentation. Everything from Chinese news report to corporate reports. The report is immediately cited so that anyone who wishes to replicate where a specific place of information was found or see the underlying documentation can do so. Second, the complexity of the overall story. Attempts have been made to break down the key points about what happened, who was involved, with timelines and indexes. Third, only 3 human sources are used in the report. 2 human sources only confirmed top-line information in the acknowledgement of an individual and no other information. The third human source was not consulted for the story but agreed to let the information be used for the story after the importance of the information became apparent. For 2 months, I have worked on behalf of my colleague to ensure that this report helped others report on the documented evidence of Biden activities with regards to China. I want to emphasize a couple of things about my own involvement. First, I did not write the report, and I am not responsible for the report. I have gone over the report with a fine-tooth comb and can find nothing factually wrong with the report. Everything is cited and documented. Arguably, the only weakness is that we do not have internet emails between Chinese players or the Chinese invitees that would make explicit what the links clearly imply. Second, I will not be disclosing the individual who did write the report. They have very valid reasons to fear for both their personal safety and professional risks. Throughout the years, I have known this individual. We have never discussed politics. I have never heard them criticize any political party other than CCP. That's the Chinese Communist Party. They are not a Republican. Third, it was my very real wish that the press would have reported on the document evidenced in this report and left me and the authority entirely out of the situation. I did not vote for Trump in 2016 and will not vote for him in 2020. This information, however, is entirely valid public interest information that the press has simply refused to cover due to their own partisan wishes. I have serious policy differences with President Trump. I am pro-immigration. I would like to see more free trade efforts to shift trade away from China and into partner countries from Mexico to Vietnam and India. I believe that institution building in Asia is vital and America needs to take that lead. However, I cannot in good conscience allow documented evidence of the variety presented here go unreported by partisans who are simply choosing to hide information. Finally, I will not be answering any questions about the report. I had no wish to be involved in presidential politics. I do not want to be on the news. I will not answer any questions about who wrote the report. We need to return the focus to the known documented facts. And here are 12 facts that are in this report. Number 1, Joe Biden's compromising partnerships with the Communist Party of China runs via Yang Ji's. Hunter Biden's 2013 Bohai Harvest Rosemont Investment Partnership was set up by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs institution. Hunter has a direct line to the Politburo. Michael Lin, a Taiwanese national now detained in China, brokered the BHR partnership. Lin is a POI for his work on behalf of China, as confirmed by Source B and Source C. BHR is a state-owned, state-managed operation. Lending shareholder in BHR is the Bank of China, which lists BSR as a subsidiary, and BHR's partners are SOEs that funnel revenue assets to BHR. Hunter continues to hold 10% in BHR. He visited China in 2010 and met with major Chinese government financial companies that would later back BHR. Hunter's BHR stake, purchased for $400,000, is now likely to be worth approximately $50 million. Hunter also did business with Chinese tycoons linked with the Chinese military and against the interest of U.S. national security. Biden's foreign policy stance toward China turned positive despite China country's rising geopolitical assertiveness. The summary here says, lost among the salacious revelations about laptop providence is the more mundane reality of influence and money of major United States political figures. Ill-informed accusations of Russian hacking and disinformation face the documented reality of a major Chinese state financial partnership with the children of major political figures. A report by an Asian research firm raises worrying questions about the financial links between China and Hunter Biden. Beginning just before Joe Biden's ascendancy to the vice president, Hunter was traveling to Beijing, meeting with Chinese financial institutions and political figures would ultimately become his investors. Finalized in 2013, the investment partnership included money from Chinese government, Social Security, and major state-owned banks, a veritable who's who of Chinese state finance. It is not simply the state money that should cause concern, but the structures and the details that took place. Most investment in specific projects came from state-owned entities and flowed into the state-backed projects or enterprises. Even the deals speak to the worst of cronyism. The Hunter Biden investment firm's share of the copper mine in the Congo was guaranteed with assets that put him at risk by a larger copper company to ensure deal flow to Hunter's firm. You can see there's a lot more to that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the report, which is right here. It lists these same 10 points, and then it gets into how Hunter received Chinese state money. Communist Party, the cultivation of the Bidens. You got maps after maps. This is a big document. Well written, well detailed, and I'm going to leave that there for you to check that out. Moving on, also came out today was information. This was came out. Fox News reported this earlier today. Harris, that's Kamala Harris. Prominent Democrats were listed as key contacts for the Biden family business venture projects. A list of key domestic contacts for a joint venture involving Jim and Hunter Biden and now bankrupt CEFC, which is the China energy company, included former Vice President Joe Biden's current running mate, Kamala Harris, among other prominent Democrats. An email exclusively obtained by Fox News with the subject line Phase 1 Domestic Contacts Projects and dated May 15, 2017, Biden's brother Jim Biden shared a list of key domestic contacts for Phase 1 of target projects. The email is unrelated to the laptop or hard drive purportedly belonging to Hunter Biden, the former vice president's son. The list included Harris, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Senator Kristen Gillibrand, Andrew Cuomo, Governor of New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, and former Governor Mayor Terry McAuliffe, among others. It is unclear if any of the Democrats were ever contacted about the target projects. The email was sent from Jim to Hunter Biden, Tony Bobulinski, Rob Walker, and James Gillar. Bobulinski was an institutional investor who was recruited by the Biden family to run their joint venture with now bankrupt CEFC China Energy Company. Bobulinski, a former lieutenant in the U.S. Navy, and served as the CEO of Sinohawk Holdings, which he said was the partnership between CEFC Chairman Yi and the Biden family. I was brought into the company to be the CEO by James Gillar and Hunter Biden, Bobulinski said in a statement to Fox News. The reference to the big guy in the much publicized May 13, 2017 email is in fact a reference to Joe Biden. The other JB reference in that email is Jim Biden, Joe's brother. Bobulinski was referring to an email Fox News obtained last week dated May 13, 2017, which included a discussion of remuneration packages for 6 people in a business deal with a Chinese energy firm. The email appeared to identify Biden as chair and vice chair, depending on the agreement with CEFC, and an apparent reference to the now bankrupt China Energy Company. The email includes a note that Hunter has some office expectations. He will elaborate. A proposed equity split references 20 for H and 10 held by H for the big guy, with no further details. The Biden campaign, which said it has released former vice president's tax documents returned, which do not reflect any involvement with Chinese investments. The campaign declined to comment on Fox News Thursday morning, and Harris's office did not immediately respond to a request for the comment. Bobulinski, in a statement to Fox News, said Hunter called his dad the big guy or my chairman and frequently referenced him, asking for a sign-off or advice on the various potential deals that he was discussing. I've seen Vice President Biden saying he never talked to Hunter about his business, Bobulinski said. I've seen firsthand that that's not true because it wasn't just Hunter's business. They said they were putting the Biden family name and legacy on the line. He added, I realized that Chinese were not really focused on healthy financial ROI. They were looking at this as political or an influence investment. Once I realized that Hunter wanted to use the company as his personal piggy bank by just taking money out of it as soon as it came from the Chinese, I took steps to prevent that from happening, Bobulinski said, adding that he asked the Biden family to address the American people, outline the facts, so I can go back to being irrelevant, so that I am not put in a position to answer those questions for them. He says he doesn't have a political axe to grind. He said, I just saw behind the Biden curtain. I grew concerned with what I saw. The Biden family aggressively leveraged the Biden family name to make millions of dollars from foreign entities, even though some were from communist-controlled China. And right here is about the Bobulinski, more stories. This was on Newsweek because Bobulinski gave a report. Hunter Biden, former business partner Tony Bobulinski, told reporters at a Thursday press conference that he did discuss details with Chinese entities with Democrat President nominee Joe Biden and members of the Biden family. Allegations that the Biden family received payment from China were published in October by the New York Post in a story that was called into question over corroborated sources. President Trump has seized on the allegations concerning the Biden family, calling Joe Biden a corrupt politician. Joe Biden told reporters in September that there had never been discussions between himself and his son, Hunter Biden, concerning overseas business deals. On Thursday, Bobulinski told reporters that wasn't true. And one more time, Bobulinski said, I have heard Joe Biden say that he's never discussed business with Hunter. Bobulinski said, reading from a prepared statement, that is false. And right here is the, if you want to go watch this, it is 7 minutes and 20 seconds. I'm not going to play it here, but I'm going to make the link available so you can check it out. See for yourself what's going on with that. Also, part of the Hunter Biden saga is as we have a taped interview for OAN that reveals Hunter Biden's laptop included 40 to 50 images of alleged child endangerment with a young family member. As Cassandra Fairbanks reported on Tuesday night, approximately one-third of the explicit photos of minors in Hunter Biden's laptop were of the same 14-year-old girl who is one of his relatives, according to a shocking new report. Not only were there inappropriate photos of the child on her own, but Hunter Biden was in some of them with her. A source close to the matter who claims to have seen the images on the laptop told Revolver that about one-third of the images are the same underage girl. Some of the images topless, while others she is shown in suggestive positions with Hunter himself. All right, let's see, stop this here. All right, so there you go. So that's one of the problems Hunter's got to deal with there. And right here, a response from Hunter or from the Biden campaign in regards to the Tony Bobulinski presser. It said Hunter Biden's associate and whistleblower held an impromptu presser Thursday evening shortly before the debate. Tony Bobulinski is a CEO of Sinohawk Holdings, which is a partnership between Chinese operating through CEFC/Chairman Yi and the Biden family. Bobulinski confirmed the Hunter Biden emails were authentic and said the Bidens were behind his back and got millions by the Chinese in side deals. He did reveal that he was introduced to the big guy, a.k.a. Joe Biden, and was told about the Biden crime family's influence peddling business with the communist Chinese. Mr. Bobulinski said that he received an email concerning an allegation of equity which said 10% was held by H, and H held some for the big guy, and there was no question that H for Hunter, and big guy was Joe Biden, and J for Jim Biden. Joe Biden was taking 10 to 50% of everything Hunter made, according to emails and text messages. So Joe Biden's spokesman, Andrew Bates, released a very deceptive statement in response to the presser. Said Biden never held stock in any such business arrangements, nor has any family member or any other person ever held stock for him, the Biden's campaign says. This doesn't address whether Hunter's Biden collected money on behalf of his father, Joe Biden. Biden's camp also claimed that Joe Biden has released his tax returns and shows there is no indication he ever got any money from anybody in these business deals. Of course not, because the payments were not going directly to Joe Biden. Biden's camp gaslighted the public and actually had the gall to claim Joe Biden has never even considered being involved in business with his family, nor in any overseas business whatsoever. Tony Bobulinski met with Joe Biden at the Beverly Hilton in Los Angeles, May 2017, for an hour and discussed Hunter Biden's business deals in China. Joe Biden also met with a Burisma executive and was photographed with Hunter's associates from Kazakhstan. The Biden campaign then attacked President Trump and accused him of having a secret bank account. Of course, this is a total lie. President Trump had a Chinese bank account. We talked about that tonight at the debate. So he could pay his taxes on an office he was opening in China, and the tax records prove that he never had a secret account. If the real media, Joe Biden would ever be on the ballot, if we had a real media, Joe Biden would never be able to operate such a large crime syndicate because he would have been outed by the press before he would have been able to establish a scheme. True, very true indeed. This is, and speaking to that last point, that is why it is so important for there to be a fair press. What does that mean, a fair press? We hear the idea of fake news, and people want to dispute that, saying, oh, that's just a talking point. But it really isn't just a talking point. I did a show all about the fake news. You can go back and find it. It was episode 1717. It was a segment in there that really outlined the history of fake news. It's been going on for a long while. In our country, fake news started happening back when the Council on Foreign Relations was formed back in 1921. That's when they took over the printed press, because that's what we had at the time. And then after World War II, when the Nazi scientists came over to America and they got together with the members of our intelligence community, the OSS, they formed the CIA. And the CIA went on to create Operation Mockingbird, which employed these different technologies into taking control of the media that was now out there, of television and film, the things that weren't in existence back when it was just 1921. And so as these things evolved, there was more in control. The media was now dictating. And the media was basically the CIA. It was the deep state. And in the Church Committee hearings in 77, this was confirmed. 400 CIA were working in the mainstream media. MK Ultra program was revealed. And here we are years and years later. We've had propaganda bills that have passed that have said it was legal to make propaganda in the American people. So the people don't know. They've been lied to. They've been misled. And that's a horrible thing for learning, because if we had a fair press, a press that went and observed an event and wrote down what they saw, they wrote down accurate quotes that were given, and they presented that truthful information without their opinions, we would be much further along, because the American people would then be able to make a better decision because they had better answers, better information. But instead, we have media that is completely publicized, all leaning to the side of the deep state, with the exception of a few people who are in the media. And the people that are working in the media, none of them own the networks. So regardless of what reporters or journalists are out there, they may be trying to tell the truth, but I guarantee you they're fighting with their networks to do so. Some people have more fight in them than others. Some just give up and go along with everything the network wants them to do. So we have to pay attention when we're watching the news to understand the difference. What is what? What is them telling the story that their network wants them to tell, and what is the moment when they're being truthful? What information out there in the world is truthful? The way things move, the spin machine moves so fast. When an event happens, you really have to grab a hold of that truthful information right at the beginning, because that's where you're going to find it. Local newspapers, police scanners, fire scanners, local reports, social media. Within the first hour, you're going to find out exactly what went on. But once you get past that first hour, the spin machine gets in and it takes that information and distorts it. And that's what happens. And the machine is so big, but with the amount of people in the world now, in America, the movement that's going on, this movement of QAnon that is out there, the patriots that are pushing things, it's overwhelming the media. It's overwhelming, and it's a game changer. Because now the media, which was overwhelming the people, are being overwhelmed by the people that they were once overwhelming. And so all of this information that we're getting from the alternative sources is really helpful, because it's giving us the end around all of the deceptions of the mainstream medias. And believe me, there are deceptions. They've been out there for a long while. Most people don't even realize, because it's been that way your entire life. It's only when it's pointed out. And once it's pointed out and you see it, it's like pulling the curtain back and seeing the man behind the curtain who's actually controlling the Wizard of Oz. Once you see it, you can't go back, because you know the truth. Okay, so that's what's going on out there. And we're going to turn our attention now to continue on with the discussions that we've been having. So up to this point, we have the Bible, book of Genesis, story of Adam and Eve, but then we have the pre-stories that go all the way back to 450,000 years of the Anunnaki. We have that whole existence. Perhaps that is the connection to this pre-Adamic race that existed, that is talked about in such books as The Curse of Canaan and other stories like the Nag Hammadi Library, and even in the Bible when it mentions the land of Nod, where Cain went off to and met his wife. Where did these people come from? So there were some other people that were out there. There was another timeline that existed outside the timeline of the Bible. It's not being anti-God to look at that and understand that. It's simply understanding that there's something historically different that happened than what we're being led to believe. History is written by the winners, and sometimes if the bad guys are the ones who win, they might distort history. As I've said before, do you really think that after Jesus was crucified, the ones who crucified him, the ones who wanted to keep Jesus silent, do you think they then said, hey, let's get all of Jesus's words, put them together, and give them to the people so they can have them? You really think that's what happened? No, it isn't. Because that's why they killed Jesus. They didn't like what he was saying. They wanted to snuff out his words. So the message had to go underground. And that's where it's thrived over all of these years. And it's continued to go on, and the messages have gone on, and the words have gone on. And so here we are, having to seek to find all of this information. And we have those with good intents in the world. We have those with bad intents. We have this extraterrestrial influence, which is somehow part of the whole mix of who we are. And here we are dealing with all of that, seeming to come to some sort of head here in 2020. The book of Revelation, as was discussed yesterday, seems to outline a number of events that are taking place. We see the anger between people. So what we need to understand and we need to look at is how we can connect better with the energy, so we can be more harmonious with it and more in touch with it, so we can be more peaceful. Yesterday, I read to you from the Nag Hammadi the description of God, the Mother, the Father, the Christ-light energy that flows through all things. And now I'd like to go and kind of expand on that, because we have two different types of gods, so to speak, we're going to talk about. We have the God that I described yesterday, that was described as the ultimate source that was limitless and, unconquerable and all these other things. But then we have the beings who are on the planets pretending to be gods, saying the things that they are saying. Now, some of them may have good intentions, and some may just be power-hungry individuals who don't have good intentions. Either way, they are using energies and they are communicating with the beings around them using the energies that they have available. So the better that we can understand how to work with these energies and our relationship to them, the better off for us. So if we step outside of the Bible and the books of the Apocrypha, look at some of the other books, one that I find very, very helpful and fascinating is this book here. It's called the Krybalion. And the Krybalion is a book that deals with Hermetic philosophy. And it really gives a great description of how things work. It says the concise work on Hermetic philosophy outlines 7 universal principles: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause, effect, gender. Rather than the actual Krybalion, this is purportedly an exegesis on that text. Let me just give you a little intro here. We take great pleasure in presenting to the attention of students and investigators of the secret doctrines this little work based on the world-old Hermetic teachings. There has been so little written upon the subject, notwithstanding the countless references to the teachings in the many works upon occultism, that the many earnest searchers of the arcane truth will doubtless welcome the appearance of this present volume. The purpose of this work is not the enunciation of any special philosophy or doctrine, but rather to give the student a statement of the truth that will serve to reconcile the many bits of occult knowledge that they may have acquired, but which are apparently opposed to each other, and which often serve to discourage and disgust the beginner in the study. Our intent is not to erect a new temple of knowledge, but to rather place in the hands of the student a master key with which he may open many inner doors in the temple of mystery through the many portals that he has already entered. There is no portion of the occult teachings possessed by the world which have been so closely guarded as the fragments of the Hermetic teachings which have come down to us over the tens of centuries which have elapsed since the lifetime of its great founder, Hermes Trismegistus, the scribe of the gods, who dwelt in old Egypt in the days when the present race of men was in its infancy, contemporary with Abraham. And if the legend be true, an instructor of that venerable sage, Hermes was and is the great central sun of occultism, whose rays have served to illuminate the countless teachings which have been promulgated since his time. All the fundamental and basic teachings embedded in the esoteric teachings of every race may be traced back to Hermes. Even the most ancient teachings of India undoubtedly have their roots in the original Hermetic teachings. Now, one thing that's important to remind you as you're hearing this, because I don't want anyone to be turned off, the word occult, it simply means that which is hidden. That's it. It doesn't mean anything bad. It doesn't mean anything good. It just means something that is hidden. So this wisdom is wisdom that has been hidden for one reason or another. Maybe it was hidden because, like in the story of Jesus, the disciples had to go underground because they were going to be ostracized or maybe even tortured and killed for presenting that wisdom. So it would go underground, or somebody was trying to intentionally hide it to keep others from having it. Either way, occult means it is hidden. And what did Jesus keep saying? To seek and find. Well, you don't look for something that's out in the open. You look for something that is hidden. Therefore, you would look for something that is occult, so you could see and find the hidden thing that is there. Because the hidden thing is part of the energy that God is putting forth into the world. God created all things. God created the esoteric sciences, the energies that are all interpreted. Devil didn't create those. People may say, oh, those are the works of the devil, because they're looking at the perversions that may have been done. But God creates all things. All the devil can do is take what God created and try to pervert it in order to try to distract people and misuse that energy. But while people are out there misusing this energy, doing so intentionally, it's also important that there are people out there using the energy properly to counteract all of those who are misusing the energy. Otherwise, we're just giving up the energy to the people saying, oh, We've got these energies that God gave us. Those people said that they belong to them and they're the devils and only they can do them. And now they're going to use all these energies to go and affect things. And we're just going to stand by and watch because we're afraid of the word occult. But it's all God's energies. It's all part of what we're supposed to understand because it's the deeper mysteries of life that we're understanding. Okay? So that's occult. Just what's hidden. So we're looking for hidden things. And at this point in time, it's a hidden wisdom that when we understand it, we will find out that this wisdom goes back, and it's gone through all kind of societies, through time, through many, many of our societies. Okay, so let's jump over to chapter 1, the Hermetic Philosophy. Okay, here's a quote. The lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding. From old Egypt have come the fundamental occult, esoteric and occult teachings which have strongly influenced the philosophies of all races, nations, and peoples for several thousands of years. Egypt, the home of the pyramids and the Sphinx, was the birthplace of the hidden wisdom and mystic teachings. From her secret doctrines, all nations have borrowed. India, Persia, Chaldea, Media, China, Japan, Assyria, ancient Greece, and Rome, and many other countries partook liberally of the feast of knowledge to which the hierophants and the masters of the land of Isis so freely provided for those who came to partake of this great store of mystic and occult lore which the masterminds of that ancient land had gathered together. In ancient Egypt dwelt the great adepts and masters who've never been surpassed, and who seldom have been equaled during the centuries that have taken their professional flight since the days of the great Hermes. In Egypt was located the great lodge of lodges of the mystics. At the door of her temples entered the neophytes, who afterward as hierophants, adepts, and masters traveled to the four corners of the earth, carrying with them the precious knowledge with which they were ready, anxious, and willing to pass on to those who were ready to receive the same. All students of the occult recognize the debt that which they owe these venerable masters of the ancient land. Okay, so there's a lot to these. I want to just give you a little basics, but here is the heart of it, the 7 principles. 7 principles: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. Okay, I'm going to just give you a brief summary. Well, let's see how much this is. Okay, it's not too much here. 7 principles will be discussed and explained as we proceed with these lessons, but a short explanation of each, however, may as well be given at this point. Mentalism. The all is mind. Okay, this is what's important, because when we were referring and we were talking yesterday and reading about the story that Jesus was unfolding about God, and he was talking about this great mind. Well, here it is in principle number 1, the all is mind. It's confirming what was talked about there and what Jesus talks about. This principle embodies that the all is mind. It explains that the all, which is the substantial reality underlying all of the outward manifestations and appearances, which we know under the terms of the material universe, the phenomena of life, matter, energy, is in short, all that is apparent to our material senses, is spirit, which in itself is unknowable and undefinable, but which may be considered and thought of as a universal, infinite living mind. It also explains that all the phenomenal world of the universe is simply a mental creation of the all, subject to the laws of the created things, and the universe as a whole, in which its parts or units has its existence in the mind of the all, in which the mind we live and move and have our being. This principle, by establishing the mental nature of the universe, easily explains all the varied mental and psychic phenomena that occupy such a large portion of the public attention and which, without explanation, are non-understandable and defy scientific treatment. An understanding of this great hermetic principle of mentalism enables the individual to readily grasp the laws of the mental universe and to apply the same to his well-being and advancement. The hermetic student is enabled to apply intelligently the great mental laws instead of using them in a haphazard manner. With the master key in his possession, the student may unlock the many doors of the mental and the psychic temple of knowledge and enter the same freely and intelligently. This principle explains the true nature of energy, power, and matter, and why and how all of these subordinate to the mastery of mind. One of the old Hermetic masters wrote long ages ago, "He who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery." And these words are as true today as at the time when they were first written. Without this master key, mastery is impossible, and the student knocks in vain at the many doors of the temple. Principle 2, the principle of correspondence. As above, so below, as below, so above. This principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws of phenomena and of the various planes of being and life. The old Hermetic axiom ran in these words: as above, so below, and so below, as above, below, so above. And the grasping of this principle gives one the means of solving many a dark paradox and a hidden secret of nature. There are planes beyond our knowing, but when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. This principle is the universal application of manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. It is a universal law. The ancient Hermeticists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. Its use even tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that the glimpse of the face of the goddess might be caught, just as the knowledge of the principles of geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements. While seated in his observatory, so a knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason intelligently. For the known to the unknown, studying the monad, he understands the archangel. So this principle is very important and ties together so much that we need. Because once we recognize, as was described yesterday, and of the mind, that this God force is this giant mind that is comprised of these masculine and feminine energy and this light of this Christ that shines through it. This is out there and makes up all things. But the second principle, the law of correspondence, tells us that the smallest aspect of this can correspond with the largest aspect. That means every bit of this energy can correspond with the highest element and aspect of the God force as any other. It's just a matter of the will to do so. And so the correspondence means that we always have that line of corresponding with the highest creative element of life. All we have to do is open up that channel to correspond. Okay? So we recognize everything's a mind, and we have the ability to communicate with every aspect of that mind because we are directly a part of that mind. The third principle, the principle of vibration, says this principle embodies the truth that everything is in motion. Everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. Facts which modern science endorses and which each new scientific discovery tends to verify. And yet this Hermetic principle was enunciated thousands of years ago by the masters of ancient Egypt. This principle explains that the differences between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and spirit result largely from varying rates of vibration. From the all, which is pure spirit, down to the grossest form of matter, all is in vibration. The higher the vibration, the higher the position in the scale. The vibration of spirit is at such an infinite rate of intensity and rapidity that it is practically at rest, just as the rapidly moving wheel seems to be motionless. And at the other end of the scale, there are gross forms of matter whose vibrations are so low as to seem at rest. Between these poles, there are millions upon millions of varying degrees of vibration. From corpuscle and electron atom molecule to worlds and universes, everything is in vibratory motion. This is also true in the planes of energy and force, but also on the mental planes and even on the spiritual planes. An understanding of this principle with the appropriate formulas enables Hermetic students to control their own mental vibrations as well as those of others. The master also applies the principle to conquering of natural phenomena in various ways. He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power, says one of the old writers. Okay, so we have everything's a mind. We have the ability to communicate with all of this aspect of this giant mind. Every aspect of this is vibrating from a slow to a fast vibration and everything in between. The principle of polarity tells us everything is dual. It says this principle embodies the truth that everything is dual, everything has two poles, everything has its pairs of opposites, all of which are old Hermetic axioms. It seems the old paradoxes that have perplexed so many, which have been stated as follows: thesis and antithesis are identical in nature, but different in degree. Opposites are the same, differing only in degree. The pairs of opposites may be reconciled. Extremes meet. Everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half truth. Every truth is half false. There are two sides to everything, etc., etc. It explains that in everything there are two poles or opposite aspects, and these aspects are really the two extremes of the same thing with varying degrees between them. To illustrate, hot and cold, though opposites, are really the same thing, the differences consisting merely of degrees of the same thing. Look at your thermometer to see you can discover where heat terminates and where cold begins. There is no such thing as absolute heat or absolute cold. The two terms heat and cold simply indicate varying degrees of the same thing, and that same thing, which manifests as heat and cold, is merely a form, variety, and rate of vibration. So heat and cold are simply two poles of which we call heat, and the phenomena attendant thereupon are manifestations of the principles of polarity. The same principle manifests in the cases of light and darkness, which are the same thing, the difference consisting in varying degrees of the two poles of that phenomena. Where does darkness leave off and light begin? What is the difference between large and small, between hard and soft, black and white? Okay, so you get the point. Next one is the principle of rhythm. Everything flows in and out. Everything has its tide. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifest in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates the Krybalion. Okay. Principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to the law. Chance is but a name for the law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. And finally, gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. I want to explain this last one a little bit more. The principle embodies the truth that there is gender manifested in everything. The masculine and the feminine principles ever at work. This is not true only in the physical plane, but also on the mental and the spiritual planes. On the physical plane, the principle manifests itself as sex. But on the higher planes, it takes higher forms, but the principle is ever the same. No creation, physical, mental, or spiritual, is possible without this principle. As understanding of its laws will throw light on many a subject that has perplexed the minds of men, the principle of gender works ever in the direction of generation, regeneration, and creation. Everything and every person contains the two elements or principles, or this great principle within it, him or her. Every male thing has the feminine element. Also, every female contains the male principle. If you understand the philosophy of mental and spiritual creation, generation, and regeneration, you must understand and study this Hermetic principle. It contains the solution of many mysteries in life. We caution you that the principle also has no reference to the many base, pernicious, and degrading lustful theories, teachings, and practices which are taught under fanciful titles, which are a prostitution of the great natural principle of gender. Such basal revivals of the ancient infamous forms of phallicism tend to ruin mind, body, and soul, and the Hermetic philosophy has ever sounded the warning against these degraded teachings which tend towards lust, licentiousness, and perversion of nature's principles. If you seek such teachings, you must go elsewhere for them. Hermeticism contains nothing for you along these lines. To the pure, all things are pure. To the base, all things are base. Okay, so these are the principles that are there. And if we understand them and how to work with these principles and just consider them, so just to summarize, this mind, this God force, this that we have learned about, that Jesus was talking about, it's the giant mind. We can communicate with it. The lowest aspect can communicate with the highest, which is how we communicate through prayer, through meditation, through listening. This giant universe, everything vibrates, and this vibration has poles, and it's constantly moving back and forth in rhythm. Everything that is done, a cause has an effect in this rhythm, and we have this masculine and feminine energies moving back and forth. Masculine is the energy that gives the direction in one way, feminine is the energy that is the receptive energy. And then they switch back and forth, but they have their purposes on how they move energy. And all of this is all about how we move energies and how we connect with the mind, the giant mind, the mind of the all. So this is a very important concept about understanding how we communicate. And we can see the importance of this in the scriptures and in studies. So what we have here for today is I want to look at some particular scriptures that talk about the importance of the mind. Isaiah 26:3, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Isaiah 43:18, remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Psalm 19:14, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and redeemer. Psalm 94:11, the Lord knows the thoughts of men, that they are but a breath. Psalm 139, search me, O God, know my heart, try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me to the way everlasting. Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. Proverbs 4:23, keep your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the springs of life. Let's see here. Let's go. Matthew 22, he said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. From within the heart of men comes every evil thought, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. Mark 12, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and your strength. Okay, it's be renewed in the spirit of your minds. Let's take a look at this one over here. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve of what God wills is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. 1 Corinthians 2:16, for who has known the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him, but we have the mind of Christ. Philippians 2:5, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. Hebrews 8:10, in this covenant I will establish with the people of Israel after that time, declares the Lord. I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. Romans 14, one person considers one day more sacred than another. Another considers every day alike. Each of them should be fully convinced in their own mind. Therefore, with minds that are alert and fully sober, set your hope on the grace to be brought to you when Jesus Christ is revealed at his coming. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. For though we live in this world, we are not wage war as this world does. The weapons we fight are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid. Okay, so the mind is an important thing. Okay, we can go on and on. The mind is an important thing. We create with our minds. So we're in this world. It's a battle of good and evil going on. Evil takes what God has done and they try to pervert that. In this case, what evil tries to also do is to create doubts and fears of those who are trying to connect with the mind of God. So the fears want to keep you from connecting because they don't want you to be connected to that source. They want you to be detached from God. We see the physical detachment happening in various states where there are restrictions against going to church and how they are battling against Christians in other countries around the world. So we need to be able to see past these illusions, these doubts and these fears that are being put out there to keep us from connecting in with the mind, to keep us from using our mind to create the visions of the higher ideals, the visions of God, the visions of the Christ light, the visions of goodness. Because when we listen to all of that fear, then we use our minds and we create fearful thoughts. And if we create fearful thoughts, we create the fearful things that we don't want to bring into our lives. That doesn't make any sense. So what we have to do is we have to put aside the fear. We have to connect in, know that we all have the ability to correspond with the highest aspect of God. The principles that are outlined through this Hermetic philosophy confirm what we see from the teachings of Jesus and talking about prayer, from the teachings in the Nag Hammadi, the Bible. All of these teachings all coincide. We're sometimes taught that they're all separate and we're not supposed to combine them all because one group wants to have more power over the other group. But ultimately, all of these things can find a way to connect together. And when we see that, we see there's things that are in unity and more unity in the universe than we could realize. So let's just end today with a quick little prayer. Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, Christ light that shines through us, pray this day for all that are engaged in this battle of good and evil in the world, that we may stand strong against the doubts and the fears, that we may find our ability to connect with this great mind, this mind of God, this great spirit that is around us, guiding us, blessing us each and every day. I pray for blessings and goodness on all as we move forward through these challenging times, knowing that they will bring us to a positive outcome. All this in Jesus' name. Amen. That's it, my friends. Thank you for being here. I'll be back tomorrow. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? Everything's moving so fast and furious these days. But we'll find out, won't we? That's it. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.